Veterans helping veterans, talking about things happening in the veteran community, things we've experienced and overcome, such as addictions, PTSD, depression, legal trouble. And we also promote veteran-owned businesses. If you're talking about it, we're talking about it. This is Charlie Mike, the podcast.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Charlie Mike, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Raul, and your co-host, William.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back. So glad to be here. Another beautiful day in Texas.
It's cool.
I know. It's March. It's weird.
Yeah, it definitely is. What you been doing, man? How's everything going?
Man, life is good, and I am blessed. I'm excited to be bringing on some of the new guests. I feel like we've been waiting until we get into our studio, which has only been a few weeks now, to really bring in the big guns. And I'm excited to have Dr. Jones here with us. We met almost 2 years ago now, right when you took over the new role for working with the city of Houston at the mayor's office. So let me jump into her bio just a little bit. She is a Marine and
got out. Say that with a little more excitement.
She is a United States Marine veteran, and she'll let you know it clearly. She's been very passionate about veteran services for a while, especially female veteran services. We actually had a couple of the Grace After Fire ladies on here too. We understand that although the service is about 30% females, there's not as much resources out there for them. And so Raul and I are very passionate about making sure that you get your due diligence, that you get your credit where it's due, because I've served with many women veterans, and watch out, man. That's a whole nother class of honorees. So Dr. Jones, tell us something that not everybody knows about you.
I'm very quiet and shy. No, nobody believes that, right? Something that nobody knows about me. I don't know. I've been an open book for the last few years. I'm an avid reader.
Oh, wow.
I love to read. I have a lot of biographies. I have a lot of books that were written either, by presidents or about the president, a president's life, from Carter to Kennedy, of course, Daddy Bush.
Any that stick out that you're like, I love recommending this one?
Jimmy Carter.
Mm-hmm.
His book was quite interesting. He was president during a time of, as Vietnam was ending. He was coming, he was coming in and around. He's just been that quiet president. He was sort of that neutral president. We had some presidents that were very controversial. Some that people dislike more than liked.
Right.
But I think. And actually, still now, he's the longest surviving president.
Mm-hmm.
So that says a lot. It's a testament to his passion, his work, and what he's done and continues to do. He does Habitat for Humanity. A lot of people don't know that. Even in his 90s, he was still out there hammering nails. So that just speaks to the life that he has lived and how he has been in the community for so long and making sure that he makes a difference in this world. So
That's amazing. Now, William jumped right into the book aspect. Now, let's bring it back a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you're from, and.
So I'm from a little town called Memphis, Tennessee.
You said a little town.
A little town called Memphis. Barbecue capital, in case no one knows that. I'm back and forth yesterday for someone. So, no, that's North Carolina. Yeah, no, that's Memphis. But,
no, it's all of Texas.
All of Texas.
We're going to have that conversation.
Yeah.
I still have yet to find some good barbecue here in the state of Texas. Grew up with a single parent. So my mom was always that person, that employee that was there early. She stayed late. And she did what she had to do to make sure that I had everything that I needed and wanted. And I tell her that upbringing was a blessing and a curse.
Mm-hmm.
She's always there. If anybody needs help, if anybody, I says if they can't show up, she's going to take that shift. She's going to take those extra hours. She's going to jump in And it was a lot of times I did not see my mother for days on end because I had to be a babysitter or someplace else because she was just that go-getter. And so by the age of 17, I decided I was going to go spell my college. I'm going to college. That's what I want to do. Didn't really have a whole lot of people who went to college in my family because they were all industrial workers, warehouse workers from a city in Memphis, from Memphis. So that's what, most people did in Memphis. You work a job 20, 25 years, you get your little watch, and
Mm,
then, you retire. Back then, of course, everybody
yeah.
got the gold watch or the clock.
Mhm.
And I knew that's definitely not the life that I wanted to live. So just like many of us, I'm walking through school and I see this guy in this uniform and I'm looking at him, he's looking at me. I'm looking at him, he's looking at me. He's like, hey, you want to come talk to me? I'm like, yeah, no. But I'll take the pamphlet. Let's just see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And he got me hook, line, and sinker. And I talked to my mom. I was like, Mom, what do you think about me going into the military? She was like, do it,
Wow.
go. And she was like, okay, well, what branch? I said, Marine Corps. It's like, okay, if this is a decision that you want to make. I've heard some stories where people say, well, my parents told me, no, you're not going to do that. And my mom was like, go see the world. Just go. And where do I sign?
Wow.
So at the age of 17, I was raising my right hand and off to Paris Island I went.
That is amazing. That's amazing just to hear, because a lot of older parents, especially in our cultures, our parents didn't want us to do that because they said it wasn't a place for us and things of that nature. You didn't come across any of that?
It did not. And I don't come from a military family. I had a great uncle that served in Korea, but really didn't have anybody else in my family that served. And I just found out recently in the last 2, 3 years that I had a cousin that served. I'm like, well, wait, well, I never knew that you served. And then, of course, she started to tell her story. This is why no one really knew I served because of her experience that she
Uh,
had, of course, was not a positive experience.
Mhm.
But best decision I could have ever made. Best decision. So my
mhm.
mom was, again, she was very supportive, and she was like, "Well, just let's tell me where you're going to be stationed, and I'm on my way." And of course, again, it worked out for her because she was able to travel and
That's
come
amazing.
see me in a great state of California. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how many years did you do complete in the Marine Corps?
I served 4 years.
4 years.
Of course, like anybody else, when you go in, you say, "Oh, I'm going to retire. I'm going to stay 20 years. This is what I'm going to do." I thought about it in the beginning, and I said, "Well, I'm going to go to drill field. I'm going to be a drill instructor." But as time went on, I was like, "Yeah, no, this. I'm going to do this one term, and I'm going to move on," because I knew education was the
Yeah.
ultimate goal. So I actually did start taking classes while I was at Camp Pendleton, and had a very supportive unit. So I was able to knock out my first year while serving. So I was able to go to school and start taking criminal justice classes, and I was a college student by night, and a Marine in the daytime. So it worked out for me. So I decided I'm going to do my 4, and I'm going to be done. And that's what I did. So, and then it was during a time when it was peacetime. It was 94 to 98. Nothing was going on during that time. So it was a time for me to just get in, get what I needed, and get out. So
There's nothing wrong with that.
And you mentioned too, that even the time that you got out was during peacetime, and I know you've seen it evolve, especially the organizations that are here to support veterans. What was your transition like out?
pretty smooth. I still had that same support system. My mom was like, okay, well, whatever you want to do next, I support you. And again, she's that mom. She's like, you need stability, you need consistency. She's that mom.
Mm,
She works a job for 20, 25 years. And then again, when that first plant that she worked at shut down, she moved to another plant, and she was there for the next 15 years, and that plant shut down. And that was her pattern: consistency and stability. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I got to kind of follow in her footsteps and get something that's going to be consistent, have some stability. I did not know exactly what that was though, but I always knew that I had that lawyer bug, and I wanted to be an attorney someday. So I started my path to get to law school. So I did my bachelor's, I did my master's, and then I decided that I was going to go ahead and go on to law school. So I did a bit of that, and decided, okay, well, I decided to pivot a little bit. I said, well, I always go back to law school. I haven't made it back yet, but education has been my go-to. getting more and more knowledge, but I've always worked. So either went to school in the morning and worked at night, or I worked at night, went to school in the morning, vice versa. So that was always my path, is to work a job, go to school, but to ultimately find my passion. And I think I found it in 2010 when I moved to Texas.
So what was your what did you graduate with?
So didn't know exactly again what I want to do. Um, in terms of undergraduate studies, because I knew I wanted to go to law school. So the goal was to go to law school. So I took a lot of classes in history. I'm not a science or math major, so it was more the liberal arts
Mm.
type of classes.
Hmm.
Just learning about society and how civilization works and how it came to be where it was. And then with my master's, the same thing. And I actually had a counselor that said, "Well, what do you think about the paralegal studies program?" I'm not going to be no paralegal. And she was like, "Well, you can kill two birds with one stone. You can learn about the court system. You learn about how the system works, and you'll be able to get a job at the same time." So I fell for that hook, line, and sinker. I said, "Okay, well, I'll do it." And a lot of the people in my class I was finding was either working in law firms or on their way to law school, and it kind of worked out because I
Mm.
did, get accepted into law school, and I already had some type of foundation of what the court system was like and how it ran. So that's what I did. And of course, once I left law school, couldn't find a job because I'm a first year law student, and they wanted you to do internships. But by
Oh
this
yeah.
time, I'm in my 30s. I'm like, and I'm an adult. I have bills to pay.
Right.
But I did have that paralegal degree, not a certificate. It was actual degree, so I was able to do some paralegal stuff and still get paid a good wage for it. But again, that wasn't what I wanted to do,
Hmm.
and so quite as it's kept, I ended up working at General Motors
Wow.
on a forklift at night. Yeah, so I
In
had
in Memphis?
in Memphis. There's a warehouse, a General Motors warehouse, and all of the O heads there had been there for 30 years, 30, 40 years. And that's what, again, that's like my mom's world, is working these jobs for 20, 25, 30. That's not what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And so they found out I was a veteran. They said, "Well, hey, we have a veterans club here if you want to." It's been defunct for a while. So then I started to get that whole veteran bug and
Oh
making sure
man.
veterans are taken care of. And so I said, "I'll give this thing 1 year and then I'm out. Let me just make some money and I'm going to move on." And that's exactly what I did. I said, "Texas is where I'm going." I knew I wanted to get my PhD or either go back to law school. So the PhD route is the route that I took.
So what brought you to Texas?
The PhD route
No,
was the route that I took.
okay?
And that route took me here to Texas Southern University.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so I began my studies on my doctorate at Texas Southern University. And back to that whole bug, that whole criminal justice court system bug. So I started to study that. So my degree is in administration of justice, how and why people commit crime, and how the justice system deals with them. And so it came to dissertation time. So I'm like, okay, well, what's a group of people that I am passionate about?
I
And
wonder.
how can I intertwine that group of people, that passion that I have for this group of people, and make that connection with the criminal justice system? And that's where my dissertation topic came from, focusing on post 9/11 vets who are finding themselves entangled in the criminal justice system. Not any of the veterans, because we already have research on Vietnam veterans. Not a lot on Desert Storm, but because I am in the thick of this generation. I got out in '98, but because most of the veterans that I work with was dealing with at the time, post 9/11.
Hmm.
So that was my dissertation. It's focusing on the young generation that was just returning and finding themselves in our veteran treatment courts and in our courts around the country.
I don't know if William told you, but I swear by y'all's veteran court programs.
Love it.
I swear by each of them. I was actually a participant in the Brazoria County with Judge Holder and them, and they changed everything for me. So it's an amazing program that works.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, it started in New York, and then Judge Mark Carter started here in Texas. I actually served on the Texas Veterans Commission for a number of years, and a role there would help to distribute the money to those organizations in Texas that were looking for grant funding for their nonprofit organizations. And I always, always, always made sure that those veteran treatment court programs got the funding that they needed, whether they asked for 15,000 or 150,000. Make sure, because that is something that's definitely needed.
Mm.
It's needed all across the country, because we're finding that 10% of our prison population are what?
Wow.
They're veterans.
10%.
And we're actually finding some on death row, which that is going to be an article. My professors have been asking, when are we going to get this article? When are we going to get this article? Veterans on death row, and just analyzing and studying their life and how they ended up on death row, even with their veteran status. And there's a controversy actually a few years ago about a veteran who was going to be executed, and he was a Purple Heart veteran.
Mm.
And they had a controversy about whether or not he should still receive his just dues as a veteran, even though he was about to be executed. And so my argument is they served.
Oh, wow.
They served. You can't take that Purple Heart away, right? Because they earned that. No matter what they did, they still earned that Purple Heart, and they still earned those ribbons. So yeah.
That's a very complex issue.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. I
very
think that's a
complex
tough
issue.
one. That's a tough one to
Yeah.
speak on.
But I get what you're saying too, because
Yeah.
in the Army we have Audie Murphy, right? Very well decorated,
Mhm.
but troubled history when he gets out.
Mhm.
But you can't take away what he actually did.
Yeah.
You know,
Aside from the crime,
right? Aside from
just
the crime.
making sure that when they go in that box, they get their ribbons.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I didn't even think about. Never really considered that topic. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm still shocked on the 10%. I didn't think it was
Mhm.
that high.
Yeah. And a lot of them, of course, don't even self-identify. So they could be
Yeah.
a much higher percentage, but there is 10% of our prison population are those who have served. And so, of course, there's a deeper issue that you have to look at.
Mhm.
Why are they there? What were some of the issues that they dealt with that led them to that? So that's why it's important to continue to implement these veteran treatment court programs across the country, so that everybody gets the treatment that they need. That's why it's veteran treatment court,
Yes.
because you're not just going in and talking to the judge and then leaving. You're actually going through an actual program
You are.
that helps you get to that next step and that
And,
next phase.
and it helps you open your eyes to what the actual issue of the problem
Absolutely.
is, and it makes you want to work on that instead of using the alcohol and drugs that you were using to escape.
Reality.
Yeah, exactly. And
And there's a lot of success stories too, and a lot of them aren't as advertised. But Raul is definitely one of them. Of course, he's close to me, so I'm fond of him. But there's so many out there that it's just like I just didn't realize where all this was coming from. And then when I actually got the treatment, he would come out and like excel, and you could just sit back in all of them.
And I think probably the best part of that is that judge is able to look beyond what that veteran has done. And that's why we always advocate for someone who's on that bench to either be a veteran or has some type of veteran tie, whether
Mhm.
it's a spouse or parent who served, because it's very important that you have passion to
Right.
understand what this veteran has gone through, understand what their families have gone through, because of course it doesn't just affect them, it affects the family, affects the community, affects their employment, and just being understanding of that. And I'm actually attending the graduation tomorrow. Anytime I get an invite to attend the Veterans
Mhm.
Treatment Court graduation, I make sure I clear my schedule to go, because I think it's very important that they have that support that they need.
oh, definitely, 100%. I think we were at the last couple.
Yeah, right. We
Yep.
were at Judge Luong's last one.
Mhm.
Mhm. That was a good one. So I understand how passionate you are too about our Texas women veterans. No, and I know I seen it in
Why
your
is that?
policy.
No, I'm just playing.
And I seen it, in your bio that you were part of the legislature to help get that passed.
Absolutely. So I actually did an internship in Austin with the Texas legislature, and as you all know, we have a biennial legislature, which means that it's every 2 years. So whatever bills you don't get passed that session, you got to wait another 2 years, right? And so while I was there, I was able to get the inside knowledge of how bills are passed. And at that time, we had Texas Women Veterans Initiative. It's like, okay, let's just try this thing out. Just like what happened with women coming into the armed service. Let's just try this thing out. If it doesn't work, we just, let them go and just move on. But as it goes, of course, with women, we're like, no, 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 this is something that's important to us. So as I, was reviewing different bills that was coming uh, to sessions, I noticed that Texas Women Veterans Initiative bill that was looking to become a Texas Women Veterans program. So I asked my boss. I said, "Hey, I'm interested in this. I want to go and I want to testify on this legislation." Of course, she said, "Yeah, go do your thing." And so I showed up and I was like, "Well, this is something that's very important to women veterans here in this state. Being that Texas has the largest population of women veterans, why not have an actual program? We don't want something that people are just going to try out.
Mhm.
We want something that's going to be here for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years that represents. We don't want to be separated and because people say, well, why do you have to be separated? We're not looking to be separated, but we have our own unique needs that need
Yes.
to be to be reviewed and looked at and make sure that we have what we need. Because women know women better than anybody else, right?
Mhm.
We have, male dominated society in some things, but it's important that we have our own to make sure that we're taking care of each other. And so it actually became a program that's still in existence. And then, of course, Texas Women Veterans Day. A group of ladies a few years back in the Dallas area went to their state rep and said that they wanted a program. They had tried it for a couple of sessions and didn't get it passed. And so when I saw it, I was like, "Oh no, we're getting this passed." And so we started making phone calls. We started going to the Capitol, testifying, of course, in front of a group of men. There's always maybe one or two on the committee. Um, and we said, this is important to us. Matter of fact, let's give you some stories to show you why this is important. So we started to bring women veterans to tell their stories and to testify why this would be important. A day that would be set aside in the state of Texas that says, okay, we see you, we hear you, and we honor you on this day.
Mhm.
Well, with that being said, and I always know I'm just playing devil's advocate here. So that's amazing that you did that. That's amazing that the way everything worked out. Now, with men and women in the armed forces and in the military, we always say that we try not to separate one another. Now, is Veterans Day, is that Men's Day?
Veterans Day is Veterans Day
Hmm.
for anybody who served.
Right.
Vietnam Veterans Day, March 29th, is for the Vietnam veterans.
Right. Okay.
Women Veterans Day is for us, right?
Right.
So we're not saying that we just want to be so separate. However, we want our own,
Mhm.
and it's okay. It's a day for us to say, hey, this is what's happening in the community. Here's some resources. Here's some statistics. Here's some knowledge. Here's all of these things that we need to share with each other, at least on this day. Because at these events, when people come out, we're not just rah, 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 oh, it's Women Veterans Day. We're also making sure that they have resources
Mhm.
and making sure these women that come around.
Um, justice and wanted to be a lawyer, but it was when you went to the GM's veterans group that you were able to kind of reconnect again with those vets.
Yeah. And at that time, I really didn't have a whole lot of information about resources, but I knew that there was a group of people that we definitely needed to bring together. And in any job I've ever been at, one of the first things I said, well, what do you guys do for Veterans Day? And most of the time, if it's not a veteran related organization,
Mhm.
we never really, we just say thank you to our veterans. I said, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
We got to do something a little bit more than that. And we started to do that when I was working at General Motors, recognizing the veterans, and also making sure that if you say that you're there's a veterans preference or that you're hiring veterans, let me see the numbers.
Hmm.
Are you really hiring veterans? If this big hiring pool, how many of those are actually veterans? And so those were some of the things I was able to bring to the table when I was working at General Motors. And of course, once I got here to Texas, most of the organizations I was with, of course, were veteran centered, but the one or two that that I worked that weren't dealing with veterans, one of the questions I would say was, do you hire veterans, or what are you doing for Veterans Day? And I have been able to make sure that they are taking a second look and making sure that they are recognizing those veterans.
That's amazing. So now you're in Houston and you're working for the city. What do you do?
So what do I do?
Yeah, no.
What do you not do? I know you got a lot of
An
hats.
easier question. So I make sure that veterans and their family members are connected to resources. And one of the things that the city has done in recent years in my department is to make sure that we're not only catering to veterans, but those who are actively serving. And I tell people all the time, we're not a San Antonio, we're not a Virginia, we're not a San Diego. We don't have large bases. However, we do have a base, and we do have small installations around town. And also, we have an actively serving recruiting component that we have to look at. And they have some of the same issues that we have. The city of Houston has partnered with our reserve units to make sure that these reservists are also getting resources. We're finding so often that they are working on the weekend as doing their reserve duty, but Monday morning they're back at Walmart,
Mhm.
they're back at Whataburger, and it's like, wait, wait, wait. Let's work with you to see what we can do to get you from. I'm not saying that those are bad jobs, but you're
Right.
underemployed in the service that you're giving to your country. Still, it matters. So let's try to get you some better employment. And they are always open to that, of course. So we're making a more conscious effort to make sure that we are having relationships with the commanders and with those who actually serve on armed reserve duty. In addition to that, we make sure that they have a good balance of work-life balance. So we're always offering free tickets, sports tickets to
That's good.
those who are reservists and those who are recruiters. The recruiter's life is such a interesting life because they move to that specific city and they do the recruiting thing and then they're out. Right? They
Mhm.
move on. They don't really have much of a life, especially those who don't really have family here. They go back or they party together. And so we've been able to work with these recruiting battalions to say, hey, these are the things that are happening in the community. Yes, we know you're a recruiter by day, but what are you doing at night? Because many of them have gone to combat and they haven't really had a chance to deal with that stuff. They don't really get out a whole lot to just be able to relax and release. And so one of the things I also do, I promote the VFWs and American Legions. And
Mhm.
I tell people they are not what they used to be. And everybody knows what the perception of American Legions and VFWs have always been. We're changing that. You're seeing more diversity. So
Mhm.
always encourage the recruiters. Okay, go to the VFW's American Legions. Are you on vet ticks? Hey, we got tickets. Let me get your email. Whenever we have tickets, I want to make sure that you all are involved in doing things and volunteering. And they have loved it.
Mhm.
And I just Marine Corps. Everybody said, "Oh, you're always catering to." No, I cater to all anybody who served and just making sure that they have information. Hey, come out to the baseball events, come out to the football events. We know that you're still serving and we support you. We don't just support veterans because so often it's just, everything's catered to veterans, right? But we don't really always think about those who are actively serving. And more often than not, they say, you know what, when I get out, I think I'm going to stay in Texas. I'm going to move back to Houston because this has been a very supportive community.
Yeah.
So that's been a positive thing. Other things that I do, I make sure family members make sure that their questions are answered. I get the calls all the time, and I'm such an advocate for making sure that someone in your family has a DD 214. That is the golden ticket in our community, right? If I had a dollar for every time some family member called me and say, "Well, hey, I don't know what to do. My mom passed, or my dad passed, or my spouse passed, and they served," and the first question is, "Do you have the DD 214?" I'll either get, "What is that?" or I'll get,
Mhm.
I heard what that is. I don't know where my dad left it. I don't know
Hmm.
where he hid it. I don't know. So we take them through the process on how to get their loved one buried. So I'm always an advocate for making sure your family member has that DD 214 because you're already grieving, right? So you want to make sure that your family member has what they need and that they're able to get that process going. In addition to that, making sure that we are connected with the stakeholders in the community, the Fortune 500 companies, the other nonprofit organizations, and to make sure that we're coming together to serve this awesome veteran community. So
Mhm.
those are just a few things that I do on a daily. And of course, you got the sad stuff. You show up to the funerals and the burials to make sure that the family knows that the city of Houston supports them, and to the ones that are being buried that have no family, that the city of Houston shows up, even just for that 5 or 10 minutes, just to make sure that that veteran didn't get buried alone.
Uh, There's also been a lot of events too that they've been a part of and trying to get spread that awareness of like one of the things that I really enjoyed doing with y'all was when we went to the police station and the fire stations to say, hey, send us your veterans that are also, serving,
responders, yeah.
first responders, like let's have a resource fair just for them
Yeah.
where they can come, where they're comfortable, and show them, one, our appreciation, but two, give them access to those resources.
And that's been one of my most proudest moments since being with the city of Houston, is making sure that those who serve us on a daily basis, still after serving, and actually some of them are actually still serving the reserve units, and some of them are actually deployed. We were finding some of our HPD and our HFD firefighters are actually overseas right now
Oh,
serving,
wow.
and they have to return back and get back to the job. That's been one of my most proudest moments. Working with the liaisons, the military liaisons with both at the Houston Fire Department and the Houston Police Department, and asking them, okay, hey, well, what do you guys do for your veterans? Well, we make sure that their papers are right. If they have to go on reserve duty, okay, well, wait. What about the resources? And they themselves didn't really know about the
Mhm.
resources. So actually setting up resource fairs on their own turf at the Fire Academy and at the Houston Police Union Hall, having resources specifically for them. And it's so funny when you see them walking, especially HPD. And they walk in, they're like almost like they're quote unquote casing the joint. They're looking around and they're like, I'm like, oh, come on in. Hey, where'd you serve? And what's your name? And then they become more relaxed and more comfortable. And they start talking about where they served and when they served. And it's like, well, hey, I've always heard about compensation claims. I didn't know if I'd be eligible, or heard you. Some person once told me, I heard you had to have a leg blown off. I'm like, well, who is telling you this stuff? What? And I'm like, well, hey, you deserve to get all of the benefits that you earned. And then so many of them are so excited, not just the compensation claims, but also like the fun stuff. The heroes on the water and the scuba diving, all of the fun stuff that they get to do for free. So they
Mhm.
get to take off not only that uniform that they've already taken off, but also the uniform that they're currently wearing. They're able to take it off and just enjoy themselves with their family members at a baseball game, at a football game, just because they served. So
Mhm.
that's very important.
I love that. That's amazing. Um, you wouldn't by chance happen to have any tickets laying around for March 30th? No.
I actually already had some phone calls about that. Is that March
Yeah.
Madness? Is that March Madness?
No, it's a Astro season opener.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm just
Yeah, good luck
messing.
with that.
Yeah. I'm just,
But Astros have been very supportive of us as well. They're always giving us tickets. And of course, we all know that Dusty Baker is a Marine. So,
Yeah.
yeah, hey,
Yeah,
you
I
have to
remember
lead
that.
from the front, right?
hey,
Mhm.
hey, I could hear that. I could hear him talk all day. He talk
Yeah,
the way he talks about the past and everything like that. Like,
yeah,
wow,
yeah.
it's
Proud of him.
amazing. It's amazing.
I don't have anything else right now. What do you got?
I,
No,
I,
I'm just
I
kidding.
actually
I
have
always got
something else.
something.
I
Go
actually
for
have
it.
something else, something I did not mention that the city of Houston has really been supportive of is our veteran entrepreneurs, our veteran business
Oh,
owners.
yeah.
We're making a more concerted effort to make sure that any veteran who has a business, we're making sure that we're supporting them and that we're helping them find the resources that they need to make sure that they thrive. And we're also ensuring that the community is supporting them. We did a press conference a few months back, right before prior to the last year's Veteran Business Expo. We did a press conference just to make sure that the community knows about the veteran-owned businesses. If you're a veteran-owned business, make sure you file your LLC and make sure that you know about the resources that are available to you. And we also wanted to make sure that the community supports our veterans. These are people who are making sure that they are not only giving back to the community, but making sure that they are having a livable wage for their family. We're trying to reduce the numbers of homelessness, and how we can do that is to ensure that we're supporting our veterans. And one way to do that is to support our veteran-owned businesses. So
Mhm.
that's something that the city of Houston has gotten behind, and we're actually partnering with the Houston Veterans Regional Chamber of Commerce. And this year is a second expo, and that's actually in September
Yes.
22nd and 23rd. And that's just a place where veterans can come together. I don't care if you sell jelly or shoes or cupcakes, or just got a big business where you are selling lemonade.
Yeah.
Um, no matter what you do as a business, we just want to make sure that we support veteran-owned businesses and make sure we're giving them helpful hints and tips. Make sure you put that sticker in your window, or make sure you got that placard on the side of your car, just to let people know that you are a veteran-owned business. So that's something that's very important to me and the city of Houston, and we're very much in support of making sure that these businesses are thriving.
Yeah, and I believe the registration is open. So by the time this airs, registration will be open. If you're interested, you can visit. You're going to get me wrong saying it, but it's the Houston Business Veterans
Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, it's like HOU Veterans Chamber .org. They should have a link for the registration, and it's going to be at the George R. Brown
Yes,
Center,
it's at the George R. Brown this
which,
year.
if you're
Yeah.
not familiar with Houston, it's huge
the
and it's a
ultimate
great place to
conference
be.
center. Yeah.
Yes, yes, it's just inside downtown. It's got a beautiful parks. I love going to Houston just because seeing the skylines and stuff. I love the
You
city.
say going to Houston like we're on the other side of the
Yeah.
country.
Man, you know, we stay in our little city, you know, little big city. The city's
Yeah,
growing. But I like traveling down there,
All the
seeing
way
the
to Houston,
skylines
right?
all the way.
All the way.
You know, you gotta take the toll road. You gotta pay like $8. I mean, unless you're a veteran, disabled veteran.
the perk,
One
right?
more reason to make sure you file, save on the toll roads.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you highlighting that. I was there last year. This year's going to be even better. I know if you're interested in just visiting, there's also going to be resources there for you. I believe there's talks about a hiring fair as well to make this a really big event. So if you're a veteran, the place to be in September 22nd and 23rd is at George R. Brown. So make sure you register.
Yes, and the website is right below us. So it's the Houston Regional Veteran Chamber of Commerce. So be sure to check it out if you need it.
Yeah, I
Very
do.
excited about that.
I do want to commend you for all that you've been doing. You've been everywhere. I know you it's hard to break down exactly what you do. And so for me, it's like you're a connector, right? You're connecting veterans to the resources that
So
they
funny.
need.
Everybody says that. Everybody calls me the connector.
The
Mhm.
connector.
The
Hey,
connector.
you're the person to know, you
You
know,
put that on
or
your business card.
yeah,
The
or
connector.
or a
It's gonna
catalyst,
be on my head,
you
my
know.
grave marker. The connector. The connector lies here.
The
Yeah.
one and only.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because you did mention too, you know, like not enough folks know about all the resources, and we talk about this a lot on our podcast, and in general, folks that ask us why this avenue is because you can't reach a veterans through any one source of media
Absolutely.
ever. You know, I was talking to somebody from the SBA, and they were having an event for the Texas women veterans entrepreneurship. And I'm like, well, have you talked to these people yet? These three? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, let's get you connected.
Yeah.
You know, because you're right. There's not enough. There's never enough media. It's not.
So of course, this whole dynamic of social media.
Mhm.
We were able to get the information out on social media, but we can't forget about those who may not be on social media.
Yeah.
So they still have the newspapers and the newsletters, and we've seen a lot of our elected officials have their own newsletters to get information out. So the more that we can just make sure that everybody has the information that they need, the better. And I love the idea of podcasts because a lot of people prefer to just listen to podcasts as they're driving to work, as they're at home, when they're traveling. And for me, I feel like this is a safe space
Mm.
for the veteran community to go to listen to what's happening in the community, because maybe they do live in a small town here in Texas and they're not able to be in downtown Houston like many of us are. So I think the social media, the podcasting, and for us, we're always doing some type of Facebook post, and our Facebook posts are a little different than probably other government agencies, because I'm always posting about stuff that's happening in the community. I don't care if it's a hot dog night, if it's a steak night, whatever it is. We try to post it because you have a lot of retirees, you have a lot of people. They're just in their homes, or just click, 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 and then they come to our Facebook page and they see, oh, there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this, and it helps get the word out about things that are happening in our veteran community.
Mhm.
And of course, we tag other organizations so that you can see what they have going on in their communities, and so no one can be without the information that they need.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is true. And I've seen you work with so many different organizations. And what's how is it being like a representative of the city of Houston? You know, is this something that you're like really conscious about all the time? Like I'm also representing, the mayor's office when I'm there. And I think for me, I know a lot of folks are like, I want to make sure we invite her because she does represent, the mayor.
For me, it's important to be out there. I never want to be in an office where we're so closed off, or where people feel like we're not approachable, you have to make an appointment to see me. You can always see me someplace in the community doing something, whether it's an American Legion or a VFW. Or last week I was at the food pantry. It's awesome food pantry that Combined Arms does
Mhm.
on Ellington Field to serve. You can always find me. Everybody in the community has my phone number. And people are always inviting me out, so I just make sure that I write it on my calendar and then I show up. I always bring some stickers to make sure that I'm not just representing this office, but I'm involved as well. I think that's important. And I think it's important for anyone who is in the veteran community. It's you don't want to just sit in the office, but you want to be out there, being amongst the troops, right? A great leader is someone who knows, who has a feel for what's happening with the comrades and with the troops, and is very involved. So, and one of the things I did not mention, as a city of Houston, as an employer, has over 3,000 employees that are veterans. So we're
Wow.
also getting the information out to them because just like, a lot of us do after we leave the military, what do? We go to our good job and we pack all that stuff away, pack the sea bag away, and we start our life because we have a family, we have kids to raise, we have the mortgage and all of these things. And then so 20 years later, you're like, oh yeah, I did serve back in 83 or 92 or whatever. And so with the city of Houston, we've made it our mission to make sure that our own employees are aware
Mhm.
of the services. And not all of us are in the community at the VFWs and American Legions. And there's those who are 9 to 5, and then they go home and they may show up on Veterans Day, and then you never see them again. But to
Mhm.
make sure that our City of Houston employees are aware of resources, and they're starting to come out. They're like,
Mhm.
oh my God, I didn't know all this stuff was going on in the community. And so I'm like, so I always tell people, you don't have to thank me, but just tell another veteran,
Mhm.
Yeah, I love
share the
that.
information with another veteran. And it's just so wonderful to see the fire spread, and just the employees of the city of Houston are aware of their services as well. And it just, and they're starting to come out to the American Legion and the, hey, do you remember me? And I'm like, yeah, of course I remember you, but because I come across so many
Yes, you
people,
do.
and then just seeing them come out and just enjoying life with their family because they serve. It's always a great thing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love what you're doing and the impact you're having on our veterans in the city, and bringing awareness to yeah, women's veteran, is it
Women Veterans Day.
women's veterans day?
This time next year you'll have it down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he's proud of me when I say Houston Regional Veteran Chamber of
Chamber of
Commerce.
That's
Commerce.
right.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
can be
good.
a tongue twister
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm like, good job, bro. Yeah. Well, as we get ready to wrap up, I've got two last things for you. First of all, I want to say thank you. And recognize you for all the work you've done. I mentioned it earlier, but it doesn't get mentioned enough. You're everywhere. You're doing a phenomenal job, and your
Appreciate it.
passion and your compassion come through. I think a lot of folks are drawn to you because they feel connected. We've said connected before, but they feel heard, and I think that's a very, very big, passionate thing that we're about, making sure every voice matters. You do a great job of all of that. So, two last things. First, what's one way or what's a call to action that you have for those, and how can they follow along with you? Is it what message besides make sure you get your DD 214 in? Get your DD 214. But how can a veteran that's out there listening get involved with the city of Houston?
Or they can go to our Facebook page
Hmm.
and they can get involved in that way. So we're still working on this whole Twitter and this Instagram. It's like one thing at a
Us too.
time.
Us
one
too.
one thing at a time. But if they go to our Facebook page, they can see some of the things that we are doing in the community. And we're always posting the events that we are in support of, or that we are attending, and the events that we're putting on or hosting ourselves. I'm always putting it on Facebook. So that's one way.
Hmm.
And if you always, of course, that good old telephone thing still works. That thing that's sitting on my desk that you pick up and hang up, that still works. And you say, hey, just want to know what you guys got going on in the community. Because again, we do have population of veterans that aren't on social media. So they can always call, and I'll give them a rundown of what we got going on. And text messages. A lot of people know that I am a big fan of text messaging. So I'm gonna text you a flyer. If I text one person a flyer, I'm texting that another 100 people that same flyer. Hey, come out to this. And I get the yes, yes. I'm like, okay, don't feel the need to respond, but
Right.
just wanted to put the information out, whether it's our event or whether it's someone else's event. We want to make sure that we're supporting each other.
Yep.
Amazing.
And then, as you may or may not know, Charlie Mike means continue mission.
Mission,
So,
absolutely.
what does Charlie Mike mean to you?
Service after service. After you take off those boots and you take off that uniform, continuing to serve those who have served, and making sure that everyone's taken care of. Doesn't matter if you served in combat or if you did not serve in combat. Making sure that veterans are taken care of, and making sure those that are still serving us or had that support from us. Back in the 40s and 50s, you always saw the big parades when they came home, welcome home. Well, it's more than just a simple welcome home. Welcome home, and what can I do for you? How can I serve you? What can I do to make sure that your transition is smooth as you're returning home? And what can I do to help your transition as you're transitioning from the armed services to the civilian world? What can I do to support you? So for me, service after service.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's so many ways to continue to do that. You know, you getting involved with the city is just one of many. So again, thank you, Dr. Jones. This has been amazing. Go ahead, Raul.
No, we really appreciate you coming on the show today. And don't be a stranger. Let us know how we can help in any way. And with that, you guys, we want to appreciate you for tuning in. And as always, Charlie Mike.